Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to build something really powerful, piece by piece, so you can share your ideas with total confidence. We are demystifying the NDA.
So let's start with a feeling I bet you know all too well. You're an inventor, a founder, a creator, and you've got this brilliant idea. You're so excited, but you're also kind of terrified, right? You need to share it to get feedback, maybe find partners. But what if someone just takes it?
And so you go looking for a solution. And what do you find? You know, these generic online templates that are just packed with dense legalese. They're confusing, they're super intimidating, and honestly, they don't exactly make you feel secure, do they?
But listen, there is a much better way to get that peace of mind. And it all starts with understanding the one tool that was designed for this exact problem.
And that tool? It's the non-disclosure agreement, the NDA. Think of it like a legal shield for your ideas. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on it, demystify the whole thing, and show you exactly how you can build one for yourself.
All right, let's dive right in. If you want to build a strong NDA, you've got to start with the basics. And really, it all comes down to one simple question. How is the information flowing?
So the first big choice you have to make is pretty simple, actually. Are you the only one sharing secrets? If so, that's what we call a unilateral NDA. But what if both of you are putting confidential info on the table, like say in a potential partnership? Well, then you're going to need a mutual NDA. Getting this right from the get-go is absolutely crucial.
Okay, so we've got the basics down. Now it's time for the fun part. Let's start building. We're going to construct your custom NDA step by step, starting with a really solid foundation.
You know, every strong agreement, just like a house, needs a solid foundation. And for an NDA, that starts with two simple but totally vital steps. First, identify the parties. Who's the one sharing the info and who's the one receiving it? And second, define exactly what counts as confidential. You really can't be vague here. Vagueness is your enemy.
And check this out. It can be surprisingly simple. With just a straightforward prompt like this one, you can generate the exact legal clause you need. It'll correctly name the disclosing party and receiving party, and even set up whether it's unilateral or mutual. Pretty cool, right?
And it's the same thing for step 2. You can use a similar prompt to create a crystal clear definition of what actually counts as a secret. We're talking about things like your business plans, your source code, maybe your customer lists or financial data, the real crown jewels of your idea.
All right, foundation's poured. Now we can start putting up the walls, the core framework of your agreement. And this is where you get to set those firm, explicit limits on how the other person can actually use your information.
And here's the prompt that does exactly that. Think of this clause as locking the door. It completely locks down the usage rights, making sure your sensitive info is only used for the specific reason you agreed to, and that it's not getting shared with anyone else unless you say so.
Okay, the main structure is in place. Now it's time to add the essential guardrails. These are the specific rules, the limits, the boundaries that give your agreement its real teeth.
And there are 4 key elements here that are just critical for a really robust NDA. You got to spell out any exceptions, what's not covered. You need to set a clear time limit for how long this whole thing lasts. You absolutely have to state the consequences for breaking the rules. And finally, you have to decide which laws, which state or country's laws, will apply if there's ever a dispute.
So first up, to avoid any confusion down the line, you need a clause that clarifies what isn't covered. For instance, if some information is already public knowledge, or if they figured it out on their own without your help, that stuff isn't going to be considered confidential. Makes sense, right?
So how long should this agreement even last? Well, a pretty common industry standard is somewhere in the ballpark of 3 to 5 years. And that's a great starting point for sure, but you should always think about tailoring it. How long will your information actually be sensitive and valuable? And once again, a simple prompt like this makes it super easy to set your own specific timeline. You can lock it in for a certain number of years, or you could say the obligation lasts until the information just naturally becomes public. You've got options. Now this next prompt, this is your deterrent. This is huge. By clearly spelling out the consequences of a breach, we're talking things like legal action for damages, you make the stakes crystal clear. It creates a really powerful incentive for the other party to play by the rules and honor the agreement. So look at what we've done. We've built the whole structure. We've got the foundation, we've got the framework, we put up the guardrails, but the real power, the magic of this whole process, is in tailoring it so it's uniquely and clearly yours.
And this right here, this might be the most empowering step of them all. You can use a prompt, just like this one, to translate all that dense, confusing legal language into plain, simple English. Why? Because it ensures that everyone who signs that document actually understands what they're agreeing to. No more mystery.
So this all brings up a really fair question, right? Why go through all this trouble? Why build your own NDA from scratch when you could just download some generic template off the internet in 2 seconds?
Well, the answer is pretty simple. A custom NDA isn't just another document, it's a way better strategy. Instead of a one-size-fits-none form, you get a flexible agreement that's tailored to cover your specific risks. And, maybe most importantly, by building it yourself, you trade in all that legal anxiety for a deep understanding and a real sense of ownership over your own protection.
And just like that, that's it. You've gone from that fear of someone stealing your idea to having a clear, actionable blueprint to protect it. Now, one really important note here. This guide gives you a ton of power. It really does. But for really high-stakes agreements, it's always a smart move to have a legal pro just review your final draft. But now, you have the tools to build that agreement with clarity and with confidence.
And ultimately, that's the whole point, isn't it? With this blueprint in your hands, that fear of sharing just gets replaced by the freedom to create. So, the only real question left is, now that your idea is protected, what amazing thing are you going to build next?